Welcome everyone to the Preschool Mindfulness Summit. I'm really excited to welcome our next guest, Dr. Susan Pollak. Dr. Pollak is the co-founder and senior teacher of the Center for Mindfulness and Compassion at Harvard Medical School, where she's been teaching for nearly 30 years. And she is the co-author and co-editor and author of many books, the co-editor of The Cultural Transition, co-author of Sitting Together, Essential Skills for Mindfulness-Based Psychotherapy, and that's together with Dr. Siegel, who is also on our summit. I just noticed that. She's a contributing author of Mapping the Moral Domain, contributing author of Evocative Objects, and she has a new book coming out which sounds really exciting and has a lot of practices in which she's going to share with us today, called Self-Compassion for Parents, which is coming out next year. And she's also kindly provided an audio link that you can re-listen to one of the audio exercises that's in that book. So thank you so much for joining us on the summit today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And I thought it would be helpful just to sort of frame the topic for our listeners. And people often wonder, like, why mindfulness? Why self-compassion? Why for parents? Why now? And I think the reality is that parenting is really hard for everyone. And often we never feel like we're good enough. We're never doing it right. And even Freud called it an impossible profession. And I think it's harder now than it was in Freud's day or even on our parents' generation. And for many of us, there's so much pressure and so little support. In previous decades, parents had extended family and community to help. But our world has changed. More parents are working. More parents are single. And so many parents that I speak to feel isolated and alone. And we want to give our kids things we didn't have. And we want to raise the best kids we can. But the world is so unpredictable right now. And so many parents are scared about the future. And our schools, at least many of them, no longer feel safe. And with parenting, things rarely go the way we imagine they will. And when they don't, we blame ourselves and we criticize our kids and we push harder and we try to exert more control. And then we get anxious and depressed and our kids get anxious and depressed. And one historian of American culture noted that, this is a quote, in no other country has there been so pervasive a cultural anxiety about raising of children. So basically, we're all in the same boat here. We're all really anxious about raising kids. And often we look over our shoulder, comparing ourselves with our friends, with our families, with our neighbors. We lose sleep. And we wonder, is there someone out there, someplace who's doing it better? So do the French have the magic recipe? Or do tiger mothers get a better return on their investment? But fortunately, we have decades of solid research that shows that mindfulness and compassion can help us lead more fulfilling lives. And the research shows that mindfulness can lower our stress, decrease depression and anxiety, increase our satisfaction in our relationships, even slow down aging, help us develop resilience, and make us kinder and more generous people. So we don't have to feel angry or helpless. We don't have to drive our kids and ourselves to exhaustion trying to do it all. So the seeds for happier and less combative parenting are within us. And mindfulness and compassion really show us the way. So instead of the constant struggle to fix our kids or change them or have them achieve more, we can take what we call a U-turn and extend some kindness to ourselves. And in turn, we're then teaching our children another way to be in the world and to be in relationships. And the Dalai Lama said recently that if every 8-year-old were introduced to mindfulness, there would be no war in the next generation, which I find inspiring. So being very practical, I'm sure your listeners are saying, okay, sounds good, but what does it look like? And what is self-compassion as it relates to parents? So the way I like to think about it is, as parents, we tend to so many others caring for their needs, our kids, our parents, our partners. But we need to include ourselves in this circle of care. And as parents, we need to know that we're not invisible and that we matter too. And I think the simplest way to think about self-compassion for parents is that we can learn to treat ourselves as we would treat a good friend. And most of us are so critical of ourselves. We put ourselves down, we call ourselves names, we often tell ourselves that we're stupid or incompetent or bad parents. And we say things to ourselves that we would never say to a good friend. But many parents misunderstand and think that self-compassion means being indulgent or permissive or being a doormat. And they worry that we're going to raise a generation of selfish wimps. So the research here, and I just want to really thank Drs. Kristen Neff and Chris Germer, who've been the ones who've done the research and have developed mindful self-compassion as a program. They show that we can really motivate ourselves more effectively with self-compassion than with criticism. And being compassionate doesn't mean being soft or not setting limits with our children or with ourselves. But by being kind to ourselves, we recover more quickly after disappointments or failure. So as we bring awareness to what's happening within us, we become more understanding, less stressed, and more present for our children. And mindfulness is another way to think of this awareness, and it's crucial. So if we're operating on autopilot, we often end up repeating what was done to us when we were children. And with so many books and so many talks on parenting, the focus is really on how to fix our kids, how to make them behave, how to make them obey, how to make them clean their rooms, how to, get them to sleep, how to get them to eat their vegetables. And now, it's how to get them off their screens or get them into a good college or be a success. But what would it be like if you didn't have to make your kid be somebody else? But if you could really just focus on loving your kid, being present with your kid, and being the best parent that you could be. So let me tell you a story, and these stories are composites, and this is about someone that I'll call Amy. And I think this story is going to resonate, I hope, with preschool parents and teachers. And I'm calling this story Out of Gas. So it was one of those mornings. The baby hadn't slept, Amy's husband was out of town, and 3-year-old Sophie insisted on wearing her new tutu to nursery school as snowflakes began to pile up in the New England January morning. Plus, they were late. Of course they were late. Amy had time to feed the kids, but no time to feed herself. You can't wear your tutu and ballet slippers to school today, Amy insisted. It's snowing. I don't care, Sophie retorted and resumed doing pirouettes. Amy was in no mood for a fight. Honey, we're late, she pleaded, her voice rising. We're late, Sophie mocked, imitating her high-pitched voice. Enough, no back talk. We are going. Now, put on that jacket, Amy said, trying to sound firm but calm, as all the good parenting books recommend. You can't make me, Sophie chanted in a sing-song. She gave up the dance and plopped down defiantly and stuck out her tongue. Amy was furious. Enough! I've had it, she yelled, picking up both kids and dragging them to the car, jacket spilling out of her hands. Opening the door one-handed to get the baby in, she tossed Sophie her jacket. Sophie immediately sensed a new stand she could take with her mother's conviction and compassion waning and rage seething. She promptly refused. You're not the boss of me, Sophie taunted. You can just freeze, see if I care, Amy retorted as she buckled both kids into their car seats and sped off. Sophie started to wail, and then the baby joined in. Stop it, now, Amy hissed, feeling overwhelmed and helpless. Clearly, this was not one of her finer moments in parenting. I want my daddy, Sophie cried. He's not a meanie like you. It was a relief for everyone to get to school. The teacher was understanding as she greeted them, wiped Sophie's tears, and led her inside with a sympathetic smile to Amy. Within minutes, Sophie was coloring and laughing with her classmates. Amy left, shamefacedly waving goodbye and feeling like a terrible mother. While Sophie had moved on, Amy's anger boomeranged as hot shame, guilt, and regret. She began to berate herself, saying, I really suck at this. I'm an awful mother. As she was driving home, the car began to sputter and spurt, and then finally stopped. Oh shit, she thought. Tom, her husband, usually filled up the car, but with him out of town, she hadn't remembered to check the tank, which was, of course, empty. Amy sighed, packed the baby in his carrier, and started to walk to a gas station. The snow was coming down harder now. Great, just what I goddamn need, she thought as she began to cry. She surprised herself with the intensity of her sobs. How am I going to do this? How am I going to get through the next 15 years without driving myself and the kids crazy? She asked. So maybe your very bad, no good, terrible day, as children's storybook that we all love, wasn't as dramatic as Amy's, or maybe it was worse. But we all have at least one story to tell about that day. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, we've all run out of gas, or maybe even worse. So parenting's hard for everyone, and especially hard when family is far away and the village that it's supposed to take seems full of idiots or other parents that just don't have the time for us. And this is how we parent these days, often without a network and without a net to catch us or give us a hand when something inevitably goes south. The promise of parenting was connection and love, and yet we find ourselves lonely and overwhelmed so much of the time. And even if we do have help, there's always a price to pay. And it's so easy to run out of gas. So how do we gas up and not lock up the brakes? How do we restore our well-being? And might the quality of our parenting expand? So my aim here is to offer you a toolbox of techniques, anecdotes, humor, support, and guidance to keep you sane during the parenting years and to help you find some joy as well. The problems that arise are not necessarily intrusions or interruptions of your former child-free life, but they can be seen as opportunities for wisdom or growth. Replenishment, you might scoff. What about anger management or Xanax? How about a double martini, especially on those hard days? Okay, I get it. I've been there, raised kids. They're pretty much grown right now. And what I hope to be able to teach you is that it's easier to manage your anger, take responsibility, keep your mood steady, and enjoy your child or children while taking care of yourself. And the writer Audre Lorde put it succinctly, stating that caring for oneself is not self-indulgence, but really self-preservation. So offering yourself some mindfulness and compassion isn't about giving yourself free rein to be lazy or to shirk responsibility or to sit on a cushion and contemplate your navel while your kids are fighting and destroying your house. It's not about being soft on ourselves. On the contrary, mindfulness helps us see clearly and act from a place of kindness and wisdom. In fact, one definition of mindfulness is clear seeing. And this practice, which you also have on audio, so you can practice again and again if you'd like, is a great place to start. And I know you're busy and I know you don't have time, so don't worry, you can set a timer. You can do this in 3 minutes. And don't tell me you don't have 3 minutes. So this is called tending to yourself, and I'll do this with you. So just start finding a comfortable seat, and then just let yourself settle for a few moments. If you like, you can close your eyes or just focus on a spot on the ground. And then just take a moment finding your breath. Often we're so busy, we don't realize that we're breathing. So where is your breath? Where do you most notice the sensation of breathing? Wherever you find it, just focus there and feel the breath move in and out. You might even like to put a hand on your chest or hand on your chest and your belly. And then just let yourself feel one breath fully. And then ask yourself, how do I know that I'm breathing? So notice any sensations in your body. And then just bring attention to what you're noticing. Are you hungry? Tired? What emotions are you aware of? What are you feeling? And just as you rock or hold your child, let yourself be gently rocked and held by each in-breath and each out-breath. Let the inhalation and exhalation soothe and comfort you. Let it anchor you. If you'd like, if it's been a stressful morning, perhaps put 2 hands over your heart, just giving yourself a little extra warmth. And feel the comfort of your warm touch. And just let yourself breathe. Yes, you have time to breathe. Breathing anyway. And then give yourself permission to tend to yourself, to be kind to yourself. You spend so much time taking care of others and attending to their needs. Just take a moment. What do you need? And then just listen. See what arises for you. And then, as we wind up and you return to your day, just give yourself permission to eat, to shower, to rest, and to stop and breathe. So, just making a few more points before I wrap up. Self-compassion is good for parents and for children. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we'll burn out, we'll lose our tempers, we'll act out, maybe we'll have our own tantrums. I don't know about you, but parents still have tantrums. It's not just kids. And if we're preoccupied or angry or stressed, we're just less present for our kids. Let's say you've had a hard day, you're worried about your job or your partner or about an ill parent. And our kids can sense this, they can feel this. It's not only because they know us, but because of the mirror neurons in our brains. So it's worth taking a moment and to stop and bring some awareness and to kindness, and kindness to our experience. Perhaps inquiring, as we did in that practice, okay, what do I need right now? And where is this anger coming from? Or why am I grouchy and irritable? What's happening for me? And doing this with respect for yourself. So we're trying to find some clarity and create a pause between our thoughts and our actions. And if we include ourselves in this circle of compassion, we're less likely to yell, to melt down if a child spills her milk or refuses to help set the table. But if we're spinning, if we're ruminating about work, if we're caught up in our own thoughts and worries, we often don't have the bandwidth to really see or be fully present with our kids. We're just caught in our own concerns. So the research here again suggests that we can learn to reparent ourselves. So rather than berate ourselves when we're having a hard time or saying the cruel things our parents said to us, we learn to be a good friend to ourselves when we're struggling, to really have our own back, to be there for ourselves. And we're often harsh with ourselves or our children when we're having a hard time, adopting the mistaken belief that it will help. And it doesn't. Being harsh and cruel to yourself doesn't help. So everyone struggles. It's part of the human experience. And if we can become aware of our struggles and model and extend kindness to ourselves, it's really one of the biggest gifts we can give a child. So if we can feel loving and present and connected with ourselves, we can extend this to our kids and to our partners. So I want to be, conscious of our time limit, but if you are interested or if your readers are interested, I have more practices I could give you, or I could just give you some takeaways. So let me know any questions you might have.
Thank you so much for that beautiful presentation. It's so important, I think, and something that we often overlook is that self-compassion, as you said. So thank you for all those very practical exercises and points that we can bring into our daily lives. I think our viewers would love to hear another practice from you. You mentioned, I know there was one for washing dishes or changing diapers. So these are all in the new book that's coming out, Self-Compassion for Parents. But maybe you could share one more before we end today.
Okay, so while I get my papers here, do you have a preference for practices? What do you think would be most useful?
That's something that we all have to do, so that might be a good one.
Okay, so okay, and even though my kids are grown, I'm still doing lots of dishes. So let me just say one or two things about tedious tasks. So just as mindfulness can help us get a fresh perspective with our kids, it can also help us bring a different attitude to things we do on autopilot or things we resent. And, we do laundry and dishes all our lives. Diapers, for example, luckily, that's time limited. But, for most people, cleaning up is a dreaded chore. It's unpleasant but necessary. And we really have no choice. I mean, dishes need to be done, laundry needs to be done. But we do have a choice about how we relate to these tasks. So we can grumble or complain, or we can try to find something new or maybe even pleasant. And one way to do this is to really deliberately make it a process of discovery and get curious. Can you find something new in it? And sometimes if your kids are young enough, you could even wash the dishes with them. And when kids are young, they're often expressive about this. And you may want to ask them, try to establish some good models for doing chores, to join you and notice the sensations as they experience washing dishes. And often they'll narrate without prompting, and they'll say, "Ooh, the water's warm," or "the soap is tickly," or "Oh, the bubbles are funny and I can blow them." So try to find the miracle in the mundane. And if the kids can, we can too. So this is a practice about bringing attention to the hands. So this is something that you can do before folding laundry or before doing dishes. So just allow yourself to stop for a moment And then just simply look at your hands. Maybe perhaps wiggle your fingers or gently rotate your wrist, just bringing some awareness into your hands. And then unclench your hands. And feel your hands from the inside out. And I just want to give credit where credit's due. This is a practice I learned from the meditation teacher, Tara Brach. And then close your eyes if you want, just for a second, don't worry. And just notice any sensations, pulsations, or vibrations within them. You don't have to name them, just feel them. Become aware of each finger, the palms, back of your hands. And then see what it's like to inhabit your hands. As you do that, you may find that other parts of your body begin to relax and let go. And I know as I do that, I find my shoulders relax. Notice what it is for you. So just bringing attention to your neck, your shoulders, your jaw. Has anything shifted? And then let your attention rest in your body before starting the next activity. And then for the dishes, I call this soap bubbles. And then just try to remember the first time you played in soapy water. And for many of us, children as well as adults, soap bubbles can feel magical. And children often see rainbows in them, which adults, lost in the drudgery, stop seeing. So as you begin to wash the pots and pans from dinner, look at the soap suds with fresh eyes. And imagine that you're seeing these bubbles for the very first time, which in fact you are. Become aware of your hands, feeling the warmth of the water. Smell the soap. Bring your full attention to the activity. And become aware of what you're bringing to this task. What are you feeling? Are you resenting the burden of washing and drying a pile of dishes? What would happen if you approach this task as if you're doing it for the first time? And see if you can bring this awareness to the activity as you do other tasks during the day, no matter what activity it is. And someone once asked the Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, how to practice mindfulness. And he said, do you want to know my secret? I try to find the thing that is most pleasurable. There are many ways to perform a given task, but the one that holds my attention best is the one that's most pleasant. So, and it's simple brain science if you think about it. Thich Nhat Hanh always recommends smiling as you breathe. So, why not? Smile as we breathe, smile as we're with our kids, smile as we change diapers or fold out laundry or wash those dishes.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And I think it's really important work that we all need to do to become more self-compassionate. And I love the way that you explained how we can do these things in the normal moments of our day. We don't need to carve out all this extra time or take courses and do some of the things people think they need to do to get started. So very, very practical presentation. So thank you.
And, most parents don't have a half hour.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So that's why it's wonderful. Those were very short, 3-4 minutes. I think if we know that we can incorporate these moments into other things that we're doing, and I love that, just bringing a smile and trying to see something that we often see as unpleasant as a more pleasant way. I actually feel like going and washing my dishes now.
Well, full disclosure, the dishes in my sink that now I'm going to wash with a good attitude.
Yes, but thank you again for sharing something that's really important, not only for parents but for teachers. I think, as you said at the beginning, we have a tendency to beat ourselves up, always think that we should be doing everything better than we are, and it will make us better parents and better teachers and better role models, I think, by sharing and applying this to ourselves. So thank you again for joining us and for sharing all your expertise. And I just want to remind everyone, there's a link here that you can link to Dr. Pollak's speaker bio, and it's got her website and a link to her book, and also to the audio if you want to listen to that practice again. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me, and great to meet all of you. So thank you.